But it is possible because the comfort, Lacan says, quotation, the comfort Freud finds there in his study of the memoirs is simply this: to introduce the subject as such, which means no judging madness in terms of deficit and dissolution of functions, when a simple reading of the text clearly shows that there is nothing of that sort in this case. And Lacan adds, this still is not enough, for to construct the subject property from the unconscious, it is a matter of logic. Just as it is enough to open a book by Freud to perceive it. And yet, Lacan said, we were the first to emphasize this. So it's not a matter of any mystical asceticism, of any effusive opening to what the patient has experienced, but a position that one enters only through logic. There are differences in the way Freud and Lacan approached this case. I will go with Lacan for tonight. You might find, and if you want a synthesized version of Freud's account, feel free to write me or Google it. It's a paradigmatic case.
And Alexis said in the chat that she just heard about Schreiber about 2 days ago.
Great. So we are on topic. So you see, in summary, just to talk about this case, why Schreiber matters? Because it's one of the most important clinical documents for the understanding of psychosis in psychoanalysis. Jacques Lacan revisited this case, making the central point to his theory of psychosis. The Schreiber case provides a structural model for understanding psychosis as a disturbance in the symbolic order. When Lacan gave an account in his Seminary 3 of the Schreiber case, he mentioned that the crisis began with a strange intrusive thought. And he quote the phrase from the memoirs in a different way that I said before. He translates from the German edition. Actually, Lacan said that, it took more than 15 years to have a French translation. I think 15 years in English and 20 years in Spanish to have the translation of this case. But he says that the intrusive thought was, it must be rather pleasant to be a woman submitting to the act of copulation. This thought shocked Schreiber and marked the beginning of a progressive breakdown. As you remember, he started developing these auditory hallucinations, persecutory delusions, and the complex theological system involving God and cosmic forces. As I said before, he thought he was communicating with God and that his body was undergoing a transformation into a woman. So the key elements are the divine rays. God communicates through rays that penetrates Schreiber's body and nerves and as language. And Schreiber believed that nerves are the medium through which communication with God occurs. The transformation into a woman is followed by the idea that being transformed into a woman so that he, Schreiber, can be fertilized by God. And through this transformation, he will give birth to a new humanity. So do you know the difference with Freud is that Lacan started to sorry, I'm going to put the air conditioner. Lacan started his doctoral dissertation with psychosis. You know, psychoanalysis starts with the analysis of the hysterics. But Lacan thesis, the case Aimé, is the doctoral dissertation in which Lacan covers mostly all, I would say all data in medical and psychiatry, biological and medical resources. The case Aimé, which I'm going to comment perhaps next time, or it's based on that, but he started to understand the relevance of the symbolic order, and he departs from the idea that, you know, hallucinations or mostly intrusive thoughts, as delirant as they might appear, they respond to a logic. So Lacan's interpretation proposed the following. He says that in the system of the subject, the foreclosure, in German Verberfung, is when the signifier of the name of the father doesn't enter the symbolic order. The name of the father is the fundamental signifier that anchors the symbolic order. Imagine, the function of the father is to establish a law by which one woman is forbidden. If that law is not inscribed, then there is no limit. So he starts with this foreclosure is when it's not a rejection, it's actually, it never becomes inscribed. And when this happens, Lacan says, what is foreclosed from the symbolic reappears on the real. Schreber's hallucinations and delusions are precisely this return of the foreclosed signifier. The trigger for the psychosis in Schreber's life was to be this appointment to a high judicial office. Lacan mentioned that this moment required him to occupy a symbolic paternal position of authority. But because the name of the father, the signifier, was foreclosed, the symbolic structure necessary to support that position was missing. The symbolic demand return of the real in the form of divine voices, persecutory rays, cosmic authority figures. Thus, the psychosis erupted. As a consequence, feminization and the logic of the delusion. Schreber's belief that he must become a woman is not a simply sexual fantasy, it is an structural solution. Because the paternal metaphor is missing, the symbolic mediation of sexual difference collapsed. I repeat, because the paternal metaphor is missing, this symbolic mediation of sexual difference, which is assuming a position, collapses. Schreber constructs a new solution, God as the absolute other. Schreber, the subject, feminized as a subject for the reproduction of a new humanity. With this delusional, has the idea to rebuild a symbolic order. The delusion is a reconstruction. One of Lacan's most important insights is that delusion is not pathological or merely pathological. It is an attempt at stabilization. Schreber's elaborate theological system functioned as a reconstruction of reality after the collapse of the symbolic framework. So Lacan emphasized, to make several points, that the delusion is an attempt at healing, and psychosis involves an structural rupture, the intrusion of the real, and delusional reconstruction. So the Schreber case allows Lacan to articulate several major clinical principles. 1. Psychosis is structural. It's not simply a severe neurosis. Foreclosure versus repression. The mechanism of foreclosure, Verwerfung, is a mechanism that occurs in psychosis, while repression occurs in neurosis. Hallucinations often involve voices and signifiers. Psychosis may remain latent until a symbolic demand emerges. The symbolic demand was this position of high authority, a paternal position as a judge. So the idea is that we should not dismantle delusional constructions because they serve a structural function. For contemporary psychoanalytic clinic, and this has been developed for years and years, I myself work in a clinic for almost 15 years in cases of psychosis and bipolar and all these structures. The case of Schreber remains central because it shows the relationship between language and psychosis, how hallucinations are structured around signifiers, and the importance of the symbolic order in psychic stability. For Lacanian clinicians, the task is not to normalize the subject, but to help them construct a workable symbolic support. Next time I will talk to you about les symptômes, the symptom, but written differently than Lacan. But this has to do with topology. It's another solution to this question. But let's go step by step. For now, this involves stabilizing signifiers, respecting the logic of the delusional system, facilitating a complementary symbolic anchor. So, the case of Daniel Paul Schreber remains a foundational text for psychoanalytic psychiatry. Through his reading of Schreber, Lacan transformed the understanding of psychosis. For now, until there, I would say on this case. Since we are always run out of time to talk, I will allow today more time, but we still have a lot of things to cover. You see, Lacan started with this idea and was the first one to allow psychotic subjects into his seminars and talk to the students, to the audience. And he was the first one to say, listen, we have to listen to these people closely. And he started defining that there are discourses that define psychosis as much as discourses that define obsessional neurosis, hysteria, perversion. It's a structure of the discourse that represents the structure of the subject. Now, how about this? A little challenge. How about what I just said? How about if we read together, firsthand, from Lacan, an excerpt of 2 pages on this? So you can have the experience with me of reading Lacan together. I assume, did somebody read the article, the Lacan Baltimore lecture? Jennifer say yes. No. Okay. No, I'm not asking to blame you. I'm just curious, only just to know. So we have that, and then I gave you 2 pages of the Seminary 3 Psychosis, and today we are going to read one. Would you rather read we are few people today. Do you want to read that on yourself if I give you 5 minutes and we comment on that to go faster? Or would you rather me to read with you these pages? Read?
This is a new handout. I can drop the link in the chat if you guys would like to just click the link and pull it up on your device. Or I can share it on the screen right now, and Marcelo is offering to read it aloud with us.
Would you mind?
Not the Baltimore paper.
No.
The Lacan in Baltimore we have. What's the other one? We don't have the other one.
You don't. I just brought it today. It's a surprise. It's about this. So why don't, Sarah, if it's okay with you, just put in the screen, and you can read it as a text on yourself in 5 minutes. It's okay, or I can read it with you. But please let me know, what would you prefer?
I don't think the full text fits on the screen.
Oh,
So if we read it individually, we might all be off pace.
all right. I have
Can you
to.
put it in a link, like you said, in the chat, and we can open it? Oh yeah, there we go. Somebody's saying the same thing.
Oh,
Go read it again.
hey,
Okay.
guys, it's okay. 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll get the link and I'll put it in the chat, and then it sounds like we'll have 5 minutes for